There's a moment, maybe you remember it right now, when someone pulled away and you stayed perfectly still. Not because you didn't feel anything, but because feeling everything felt so dangerous that you decided to feel nothing at all. And in that silence, something inside you learned a terrible lesson. That love is something you earn by being less. That your needs are impositions. That asking for closeness is a kind of weakness that gets punished. This is where it starts. Not in one dramatic moment, but in the small, quiet erosions. The times your tears were met with irritation. The moments your vulnerability was met with silence. The hours you spent trying to figure out what you did wrong, because surely, if they loved you, they wouldn't have left you standing there with your heart open and your hands empty. So you learned to close the door from the inside, to treat your own longing like a character flaw, to be the one who needs nothing, wants nothing, reaches for nothing. And somewhere along the way, you became so good at this that you forgot it was a wound. You called it a personality. You called it strength. But it wasn't strength. It was a survival strategy that survived past the danger. Here's the brutal truth you're probably not ready to hear. The way you love is not a reflection of who you are at your core. It is a reflection of how your nervous system learned to stay safe. Every pattern, every push and pull, every time you disappeared or made yourself too available, or watched someone walk away without begging them to stay, it was your brain trying to protect you from pain it remembered more clearly than you consciously do. Your attachment style is not a diagnosis. It's a story your nervous system wrote before you were old enough to know that stories could be rewritten. There are 4 of these stories, 4 ways human beings learn to connect, to protect, to reach or retreat. And understanding yours, really understanding it, not just categorizing it, is the first step toward becoming someone who loves from wholeness instead of from wound. The first style is anxious attachment. If this is you, you probably already know it. You feel things so intensely that it sometimes scares you. You check your phone like it holds oxygen. You replay conversations looking for evidence that something is wrong. You are exquisitely attuned to every shift in someone else's energy. And when that energy dips, your whole system goes into alarm. Your amygdala, that ancient part of your brain that still thinks a broken heart is a mortal threat, floods your body with cortisol. You feel the physical sensation of panic before you have any thoughts about what's happening. You are not dramatic. You are not too much. You are someone whose nervous system learned that love is unstable. And so you became a living early warning system, always scanning for the moment it might disappear. The second style is avoidant attachment. This is the one people don't talk about enough because it looks so much like strength. Avoidant attachers seem fine when they're alone. They seem fine when you're pulling away because they learned so early to regulate their own emotions that they forgot they were allowed to have them. They learned that needing someone is dangerous, that asking for comfort is a burden, that if you want to survive in this world, you have to be the one who doesn't need. Because the people who needed didn't get their needs met. When an avoidant attacher feels emotionally overwhelmed, their brain does something fascinating. The threat response doesn't activate the way it does in anxious attachers. Instead, their prefrontal cortex, the part that handles planning and social behavior, essentially goes offline. They don't fight or flee in the obvious way. They just stop. They stop responding. They stop reaching. They stop feeling. And from the outside, it looks like they've moved on. But inside, something has simply shut down to survive the emotional intensity. The third style is disorganized attachment, sometimes called fearful avoidant. And if you have this one, you are living in a paradox that no one taught you how to solve. You want closeness so badly, it creates terror. You reach, and then you push. You love, and then you sabotage. You are drawn to people who are unpredictable, and then you blame yourself for the chaos that follows. Your nervous system learned that the people who were supposed to protect you were also the source of your fear. And so your whole relationship to connection became entangled with danger. You don't have a clear strategy for getting close, because closeness itself became coded as something to flee from. And the fourth style, the one that gets romanticized in movies and misunderstood in every conversation about relationships, is secure attachment. Secure attachers can be intimate without losing themselves. They can ask for what they need without fear of abandonment. They can hold space for their partner's struggles without absorbing them as their own. They don't idealize relationships, but they also don't catastrophize conflict. They are not necessarily better people. They simply learned, early enough, and consistently enough that they were safe, that their needs mattered, and that connection didn't come with a cost they couldn't afford. Here's what most people get wrong about all of this. Your attachment style is not permanent. It was formed in a context, shaped by experiences you didn't choose, and reinforced by every relationship that followed. But it was not written in stone. It was written in a child's mind, and children can learn new things. The problem is that most of us don't realize we've been applying a childhood map to an adult world. We keep looking for the mother who couldn't hold us, and we find partners who can't either. And we call that love. We keep repeating the pattern because the pattern feels familiar, and familiar feels safe, even when familiar is slowly destroying us. This is the trap. This is the loop. You are not stuck, but you have to want out of the loop more than you want the loop to make sense. Let's talk about what happens in the specific, because theory doesn't change anything if it doesn't help you see your own behavior clearly. If you're an anxious attacher, you know what it's like to send a text and then stare at it like it might detonate. You know the specific agony of seeing typing appear and disappear 3 times. You know how quickly you can go from feeling fine to feeling abandoned. And you know that the spiral doesn't match the reality. You know intellectually that one delayed reply doesn't mean anything. But your body doesn't care about intellectual understanding. Your body remembers every time someone disappeared. And so your body prepares for loss before the loss has even happened. The pattern is connection, then uncertainty, then panic, then overreach, then guilt, then shame, then more panic. And on it goes, until either you exhaust yourself or your partner does. If you're an avoidant attacher, the pattern looks different from the inside, but the emotional result is the same. You feel the pull of intimacy, and then something inside you rebels. It might come as a vague sense of discomfort. It might come as a sudden urge to be alone. It might come as a thought, a small, quiet thought that says, I don't actually need this. I was fine before. And the thought feels true, so you follow it. You pull back. You stop texting as much. You stop sharing as much. You rebuild the wall you forgot was there. And here's the part that no one tells you. After you pull back far enough, you actually start to believe you don't care. That's the cruelty of your own nervous system. It protects you by making you genuinely detached. The feelings don't come back until you're alone. And by then, you've rewritten the story. You've decided the connection wasn't real. The person wasn't right. The whole thing was a mistake. But it wasn't a mistake. You just got scared. And the scared part of you won. Now here's where it gets interesting. The very behaviors that seem to protect you are the behaviors that keep you from the thing you actually want. Anxious attachers. When you overreach from panic, you push people away. The very thing you're trying to prevent, abandonment, becomes more likely because the behavior that feels like reaching is actually a form of pressure. Your neediness reads as instability. Your constant reassurance seeking reads as lack of trust. And even when your partner loves you, they start to feel like they can never do enough because your nervous system is calibrated to find them inadequate. Avoidance attachers. When you pull back from overwhelm, you create the exact abandonment you were trying to avoid, but it's you doing the abandoning. And the people you leave behind don't understand what happened. They thought things were good, or at least okay, and then suddenly you're gone. They're left with questions that never get answered, and your silence teaches them that you can walk away from them without even saying goodbye. Disorganized attachers. You live in the middle, and so you do both. You reach, and then you flee. You want closeness, and then you destroy it. You are often drawn to anxious or avoidant partners because the chaos feels familiar, and in the familiarity there is a kind of home, even a painful one. But there's another pattern, the one that shows up in the aftermath. Here's what almost always happens. After an avoidant attacher finally closes the door, after weeks of silence, after the relationship has ended or deteriorated, something shifts. The protective numbness starts to lift, and underneath it, the feelings come rushing back. The longing, the grief, the missed connection they convinced themselves they didn't want. And at the same time, the anxious attacher who spent months or years chasing finally stops. They stop reaching, they stop trying, and in that stillness, they start to remember who they were before the obsession, and sometimes they realize they don't want to go back to the person who made them wait. This is where the power dynamic flips. This is where one person starts to feel what the other person felt all along. The one who was running starts to miss the one who was chasing. The one who was chasing starts to feel free for the first time. And suddenly, the avoidant attacher is the one staring at their phone. The anxious attacher is the one who's moved on. And nobody prepared you for this. Nobody told you that the game would flip, that the power was always temporary, that the person who seemed like they didn't need you might one day become the person who needs you most. This is the warning I'm going to give you, and I need you to really hear it. If you want to break this pattern, you have to stop playing the game altogether. You cannot fix an avoidant partner by being patient enough. You cannot fix an anxious partner by giving them enough reassurance. You cannot make a disorganized attacher choose you by being calm enough, or available enough, or loving enough. Because the pattern isn't really about you. It's about their relationship with their own fear. And your job, your only job, if you choose to accept it, is to become secure within yourself. Not to make them secure, not to wait for them to be ready, not to prove that your love is strong enough to survive their wounds. Your job is to become the kind of person who knows, in your body, in your nervous system, in the core of who you are, that you are worthy of consistent love, that your needs are not impositions, that asking for closeness is not weakness, that connection should feel like safety, not suspense. Here's what secure attachment actually feels like from the inside. It feels like being able to love someone without losing yourself in them. It feels like being able to express a need without rehearsing an apology. It feels like trusting that if this relationship isn't right, another one could be, because your worth isn't tied to any one person's choice to stay. It feels like not needing to know what your partner is thinking every moment of every day. It feels like being able to sit with their bad mood without it destroying your whole sense of self. It feels like being able to say, "I'm hurt," and wait for a response without catastrophizing. It feels like a body that doesn't live in constant threat response, like a nervous system that can tolerate uncertainty without interpreting it as danger. And here's what it doesn't feel like: perfection. Security isn't the absence of conflict or the guarantee of forever. It's the ability to navigate hard things without losing yourself in the process. The question is not whether your attachment style is your fault. It isn't. The question is whether you are going to stay in it because it feels familiar, or whether you are going to do the slow, unglamorous work of becoming someone who loves from a different place. This work is not romantic. It doesn't feel like a movie montage. It involves sitting with discomfort you've spent your whole life running from. It involves grieving the love you didn't get as a child. It involves learning to feel your feelings without letting them run the show. It involves becoming the kind of person who can be alone without being lonely, who can be close without being consumed. And if you're someone who loves in the anxious, avoidant, or disorganized way, I want you to know something that you might not believe yet. The way you love is not a reflection of your capacity for love. It is a reflection of how much love you needed and didn't receive. The wound is in the style. The love is underneath, still alive, still possible, still yours. You are not broken beyond repair. You were just hurt in ways that are still echoing. And you built a whole architecture of self-protection around the echo. But architecture can be renovated. And the person you become on the other side, the person who finally learned to love from wholeness instead of hunger, that person is worth everything the healing will cost. This is not a quick fix. This is not a one-video transformation. This is the work of years, maybe decades, of becoming who you were always capable of being. But you can start right now. Not by changing your partner, not by finding the perfect person, but by getting curious about your own pattern. By asking yourself, without judgment, what you are really afraid of. By sitting with the answer until it stops being a source of panic and starts being a source of clarity. That's where it begins. That's where it always begins. And if you're ready, if you've been ready for a while now but didn't know where to start, this is your invitation. Not to become perfect, not to become unafraid, but to become someone who meets their own needs, who holds their own heart, who stops leaving themselves to go find love in people who are just as lost as they are. The way you love right now is not the way you will love forever, but you have to believe that, really believe it in your body, before the change can begin. And I think you already do. I think that's why you're here. Go do the work. The world is waiting for who you're becoming.